Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're signing in from. This is Kumar Data Train with Agile Meridian. And for the latest episode of Meridian Point, we are interviewing a really distinguished guest. I'm going to say a few words about him, an introduction, and then you'll all get to meet him and see all the greatness that he's been up to lately. So Jon King is motivated by a vision for a better world, where people support each other and pass on knowledge to the next generation. He wants to leave a positive impact on everyone he meets, helping them realize they're not alone. They have something valuable to offer and can always improve. Sounds like a person I'd like to meet. Jon, born in Benton, Arkansas, joined the Air Force at 18 as a secure communications operator aboard the E-4B. After a decade, he transitioned to the Army to pilot helicopters. He honed his skills on the Black Hawk at Fort Novosel before joining the esteemed medevac team at Fort Campbell. His expertise and valor on 3 combat deployments earned him numerous awards and accolades. Post-service, Jon accelerated through the MSSA course, which is the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy, gaining robust corporate skills. He was the first employee at a company supporting the Army before moving on to Microsoft. Last year, amidst adversity, Jon's entrepreneurial spirit led him to launch Veteran Reachback Group and Eagle Rising Mentorship and Community Unity. With the tenet that no is but an obstacle, he persists, proving no mission is impossible. His recent endeavors, including sponsoring race car teams and bringing a traveling veteran memorial wall to the International Motorsports Hall of Fame at Talladega. So without further ado, help me welcome Jon to the stage, and we're going to delve into what makes him tick. Hi, Jon. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks again for having me. Very honored and humbled.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Your story is an amazing one. I reached out to Jon on LinkedIn just to see if he'd be interested in this podcast, and he responded. And in our conversation, I was just struck by the theme of these interviews is all about disruption, innovation. So I was struck by Jon and his ability to disrupt himself many times over throughout his career and provide so much value and bring so much goodness to the people around him. So Jon, I'm going to start with, I don't know if it's a hard question, just a question. We'll see where it goes. You mentioned in our talk significant personal loss over a short period of time last year, including the tragic helicopter crash involving the medevac unit that you previously served in. How did those events spur you to innovate and start these new initiatives?
Basically, it just, lack of better words, lit a fire under me. When you talk about strategy, just to let the folks know, kind of level setting with them. Earlier last year, lost my father-in-law, who is been my mentor, my main mentor. I encourage others to get multiple mentors. But he was my go-to for all things. When I had crazy ideas or needed to just navigate in life, he was my individual to go to, and losing him hurt. Mm-hmm. And he was also my wife's person, right? Her number one always will be. And I love her for that. Right. But people look at me and say, well, he's got it all figured out. Nah, I struggle every day. But at the end of the day, I always try and be better than I was the day before. And so that was one of the things that Rich helped me do. So fast forward through that, I don't know, about a couple of months later, my oldest brother had cancer, and we ended up losing him. And then the next day, lost my uncle to suicide. And while we were close, it was still family. It still hurts. I myself wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my wife, but that's a whole nother story for maybe another time. But the very next day is when, so in 3 days succession, lost my brother, lost my uncle, and then the 2 aircraft went down over Fort Campbell, where the 9 soldiers lost their lives doing something. I know they loved it. I loved it. Everybody in that unit always loved being there and wanted to be there because of the mission, what we were able to accomplish over the time being there. But out of all that tragedy, and the former safety officer for that unit, one of the things I did was just kind of in my brain think and look at what would have caused that. and what could we do better as a community and as a veteran community, as just a community in general, to be better, do better, and share that knowledge back that is being lost at an exponential rate. So when I looked at all that, my father-in-law and how much knowledge he still had to share when he lost his battle with cancer, and then, my uncle, you can say what you will about the man, but he was smart in his own right, very feisty, never did anything anybody's way except for his own. And then my brother lived his life his way. So knowing that knowledge is no longer there and will no longer be shared, how do we fix that? So for me, it sparked an idea of looking, and the example I give, and you've heard me say it before, but in the analogy is the military and aviation, we do this a lot. You'll get people that are fully trained and they're newly trained, and they'll be paired up in an aircraft and they'll go on a training mission with another aircraft. Well, that other aircraft may have two other individuals that are trained in the front seat and then a trainer in the back seat, kind of giving knowledge and passing it on, make sure everybody's doing what they need to do. Well, in my analogy, I take two cars, put them on the interstate, single lane, barriers on either side at night for a 10-mile stretch, curves along the way while it's raining, one headlight out. I want them to go 90 miles an hour, a foot and a half apart, and I don't want anything bad to happen. And then in the front car, we've got two licensed 16 and say an 18-year-old. In the other car, we've got a 15-year-old with a permit, a 16-year-old with a license, and then a 21-year-old in the backseat telling the 16-year-old how to tell the 15-year-old how to drive. And now, as that scenario builds, you see all the dynamic layers added into that. So at the end of the day, they're all fully qualified. They all know what to do. But because of the situations they're put in, it forces them to be at their very best every second of every day. And sadly, we ain't all that way, and none of us will be ever, right? So the ones like me that made it 20 years across aviation and survived to tell my story, I just got lucky. At the end of the day, I just didn't draw the straw. But at the end of it all, there's not that level of experience that was once there. So my thought was, how do you fix that? Well, in the military, you got a couple options. And this doesn't just stop with the military and the knowledge share. When we look at generations past, the things that they were able to accomplish, that we just sit and twiddle our thumbs and wonder how. But with the military, you take that thought and you look at it across, and you can stop loss. Well, that's not going to end well, because you're going to have a bunch of mad people that don't want to be there in the first place. And stop loss, for those that don't know, is basically what it sounds like. They stop people from exiting the military to ensure our force is still able to survive. The other is a recall, recalling prior service members. Well, that's not going to be fun for anybody, because people got out for a reason and went on to do better and greater things, hopefully. And then, so now what? Well, if those two aren't options, but you still need to bring that knowledge back, my thought is do it in a mentorship way. So out of that, that sparked Veteran Reachback Group, which was originally started just as a thought and an idea of what can the 10-year, 15-year vision look like to bring that knowledge back? Because as we all know, nothing works faster than the government or DOD from that perspective. So when you look at that, that was meant for a long-term plan. But out of that, because my brain hasn't stopped since then, under VRBG, we've started CRC consulting, so combat-related special compensation consulting, to help veterans that are medically retired and retired better understand what that program is and demystify it, take the scary out of it, and help them get what they deserve from that aspect, and not be fearful that they're actually losing something based on the verbiage of how it's all written. And it is scary when you first look at it. It can be very daunting and overwhelming. So I basically put together a PowerPoint, 5 slides, Barney style, for those that remember the Barney cartoon, that allows veterans to take that information and feel comfortable to do it themselves. I don't charge for that. That's just something I learned and taught myself over time. So I want to share and make it easy for others. Now, if they want additional hand holding and all that, of course, at a certain point, your time becomes very valuable as far as that goes. And I try and maximize what I can do when I can do it from that aspect. Then we went into PNP, or the rack, which is what you're seeing me wear now, which is just a way for me to outlet my creative side that I haven't been able to do for a while. I leverage AI to do that, and we can get into that a little bit. But then have P&P Design, where I collaborate with small businesses, booster clubs, nonprofits, one-offs, and things like that to give them, for the boosters, the nonprofits, and the fundraiser types like that, it gives them a new way to fundraise without having to come out of pocket, without having to collect money from other parents and do shirt orders and swag orders and all that. They also don't have to do your standard fundraising of, I'm going to sell a Boston Bud over here, or do this, or we need to collect money for shirts or whatever orders, right? We have to have a minimum order of 50. The way I do it is I do the designs, or if they already have one, we go ahead and host it on our shop, and then we build them collections. And then from there, their parents go shop just like they're on Amazon. So direct drop ships to them. They don't have any fuss, no muss. The coaches, directors don't have to handle money anymore. They don't have minimum orders. And then at the end of the month, based on their sales for that month, I write them a check for 90% of the profit minus any additional fees that I might have. So where normally they would buy all this stuff and then have to resell it to get their money back and do all that, that's all done up front, so they don't have to worry about it. They literally post their QR code and get a check from the month, and I let them set the profit margin too. So it allows them the freedom if they want to take and do a quarterly fundraiser, like to go beyond their standard shirts that they would sell. They can do a special run of a design that we collaborate on and come up with and upsell just like they would any other fundraiser. So now they're maximizing their profit that way as well. So for the small businesses, boosters, for the nonprofits, boosters, and things like that, it's a great way to raise money that way. And then the other side is your small businesses, one-offs that want to have swag, but don't want to buy 50 shirts and try and hustle out of the back of their car while they're out doing their primary sales, right? You know, my example is a gentleman out of Vegas that Mike Starr does Blazing Star Barbecue. He gets out there and grinds every day to get his spice and sauce stuff out, and just rolled out in Home Depot, Cabela's, and a couple of others. But he's also got swag. So for him, he's now sitting on shirts that he's trying to get rid of while he's doing his primary thing. He's not selling shirts. That's not what he wants to do. So for this, it allows him the freedom to come up with the creations, come up with what he wants, set a price for it, and then he Ron Poe pills it. For those, I keep throwing out old things, date myself, but allows them to go focus on what they primarily want to do, and allows them that passive income to then get their brand out there, as well as make a little bit on the backside from that perspective for the P&P Design piece. And then we get into Eagle Rising Foundation, and that one truly is where the mentorship for recently. I told you the 15-year plan for the mentorship programs and what I see in my head and visualize for that. Would I love to see it faster for the military? Absolutely. But in this case with Eagle Rising, there's a few things that I'm doing. One is events like we did in Talladega, just one-off events that are community events, bringing veterans and anybody else that wants to come celebrate with us out together. We do a haunted trail on my property it's been for the baseball team that do fundraisers every year. So I want to continue to do that sort of community involvement. Likely once a quarter is my goal. Right now I'm planning on twice a year. And then the other is my mentorship programs. And that's really where my passion lies, and the fun of this whole thing comes in, is because taking and building out programs like has never been done before. And in my brain, I love to learn. I'm not good at it. I'm not fast at it, but I love it, right? I like to be challenged. I like to get into different things. And again, my brain never stops. So with that, taking and allowing mentors to come in and say, I'll give two quick examples, but if you'll oblige me, I'll list off the different ones that I have. We have Pitmaster Proteges, which is the barbecue realm, as you might imagine, and all things that involve around that, and general love of that, because I love the barbecue and I've been around it quite a while. The Startup Sherpas, and I'll elaborate on that one here in a minute as well. But continuing on, we have the Tech Elders, which is essentially in my brain combining business owners, business professionals, and elements like that are further in their career, mid to senior in their career, and pairing them up with those junior folks that are very smart in the IT world, and that leverage the AI, the other capabilities that are out there, and help them better achieve their business goals while also giving that junior person a senior mentor that they can learn and grow from in that aspect. So it's a dual win there. Yeah. Then you have Green Thumbs United, which is just what it sounds like. I love growing and gardening and getting in there. I don't do it near as much as I'd like, just because of time and life, right? But thought is being able to take and people learn how to garden again, whether it's just a small garden in your house to a huge one out in your yard, doesn't matter. That's a knowledge and something that we should never lose as humans. Artisan apprenticeship. So taking and pairing up craftsmen from every warp. I mess that word up all the time, but point being, taking the folks that still have these skills and pairing them up, and then financial gurus. We, as the I would say our generation specific, my generation specifically, as I've seen, does a piss poor job of financial planning and teaching others, mainly our children and our next generation, about building financial wealth and how to do it, and really getting them involved in understanding what that looks like and what time can do for you when you have a small amount and get it big over time. And, I'm no expert. I learn every day. Yeah. Culinary crossroads is another one. I love to cook. I love to eat. So one of my best memories is growing up in the kitchen with my mom or my grandmother, and my other grandmother owned a Mexican restaurant for 35 years. So running around in the kitchen there has always been something that has brought me home. Wordsmith workshops. So when you think about writing and just public speaking and character development and things like that, and just the mind and letting it free roam on writing, sit down and write a story with somebody and come up and create, basically. Because I write how I talk, right? I'm not a wordsmith. I leverage AI now in a lot of things that I do because I know that. I recognize that as a weakness in me. So leveraging technology to benefit me there. Mentor Melodies is another one where it involves all things music. I went from 7th to 12th playing the trumpet, from learning from Mr. Taylor, our band director, and Amanda Lynn, our assistant band director and art teacher. Those people, 26 years later, I'll never forget their names, and they will always be a part of me. I have my trumpet sitting right beside me that I pick up from time to time and still tinker with. So being able to provide that back to those next generations is amazing to me. And then the wellness warriors. And my thought there is you can't have a piece of a human. You've got a holistic human. So this ties it all together and brings the mental and physical elements together on what it looks like to be a healthy human. So those being the programs, the thought is now mentor comes along and says, I know a lot about X. Pick one of those categories and can come sign up, register. Then from there, they'll pick a date and time that works for them to do a virtual meet and greet. They'll also select a date and time that works for a follow-up actual mentor session. So at that point, they're done, right? Mentee comes along and says, I want to learn about barbecue. Well, they go in, they register. They see on the calendar at that point, here's all the virtual meet and greets that are available. They select a date and time that works for them that already has a mentor signed up. That then happens. They decide whether they're going to vibe and move forward, because what we don't want to do is waste a bunch of time and energy from anybody, the mentors, mentees, or our team alike. But when they say, yep, we're going to move forward, that then triggers us to send them a package, both the mentee and the mentor. In this example of barbecue, it might be a pork butt, a rack of ribs, the spices, the barbecue sauce, the gloves, all the basic necessities that they would be able to do this mentorship session all free of charge. The thought being that now neither one are burdened by the experience. They get to truly go in and enjoy and knowledge share the way it should be done. And all I ask out of that in return is that they record the session. I don't care if it's on a cell phone. I don't care if it's a fancy setup. Doesn't matter to me. What I want out of that is them to send it back so that we can then take the best of those mentor sessions across each category, host it on our YouTube channel, so then anybody can come along and watch these recordings and enjoy that mentorship session and learn from it, if they're not necessarily ready to do it themselves or they just don't have the time, it gives them another avenue and approach. The other thing on the YouTube channel is start having conversations, open and candid, about things like PTSD, loss of a parent, loss of a child, rainbow bursts, postpartum depression, loss of a sibling, loss of a child, how to deal with your spouse whenever, in my case, you know, all the time, I want the best for my family and my wife, and I don't always know the answer. So still having that individual to look to, you know, whether it's somebody they know or not, they can see somebody that is in that situation, either been there, currently in it, or maybe going in it in the future. Who knows? But the intent there is so they have somewhere to come and feel comfortable and feel like it's okay. You know, with me, 46-year-old white guy with a beard, I'm not somebody that people would look at and go, there's things wrong with him. Well, there are, you know, you just can't see them. And I do my best to hide them most days, but they come out from time to time.
Of course.
You know, when you talk about passion and just, you know, my emotions get to me sometimes. So letting people see that and know that it's okay. So they don't sit here at times like me going, man,
right.
I like statistically or whatever language you want to use, like, I think it's stupid. Like, we're all here together. Let's work together. Let's start our own communities. Let's start building out from there and sharing with each other. And you have
a really fantastic vision, Jon, and all of it, you know, born out of your experiences, good and bad. And what I'm really impressed by is how many things you're involved with, you know, from the Real Apparel Company, the P&P design collections, the mentorship program, all of these things sort of are springing from your head, right? and all these different ways that you are trying to give back to the community. I wanted to do, actually, you've spoken so much about these things. You've taken all my questions, but I'm going to still ask you some questions about, you know, maybe more specifics around the mentorship program. So clearly you had some mentors in your life and they impacted you greatly. And my assumption is that you're trying to provide that kind of experience for others in creating this program. I'm going to get to the other initiatives that you've started, but keying in on the mentor program, is that up and running at this point?
So no, it's not. My intent was to leverage the Talladega event and then leverage the connections and learning that I've achieved thus far to then line up 10 mentors, one for each of the categories, and then we build them out and what they look like. Because what I don't want to do is build this thing in a bubble. I really, truly want to sit down with the smart folks that are in these areas and build out these programs so they will be successful from the get-go. I would love to be able to tell you absolutely, but we founded this in August of last year. Just got the programs to where they are right now as far as presence and whatnot. And then ideally within the next 6 months, I'll be able to roll out and truly have a good start on. My goal is to do a third of them at a time. And that way we ensure that we roll them out correctly, accurately, effectively, and really try and do it right.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, building some buzz, building some interest in the program, seeing what's out there, you know, what are people interested in becoming mentees for or mentors for, and then using that knowledge to build the rest of the program out. Is probably a good way to go. Is that what you're thinking as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm also curious, you know, you got so many things going on, right? So all of the different business ideas and nonprofit ideas. What's your process for ideating and iterating on these concepts?
So a few different things. I leverage a few different tools. I started what I call micro projects. It's where instead of sitting here playing on my phone and doing video games and stuff like that in between meetings and things, I started leveraging AI, open platform AI, their assistants that are on there.
Yep.
And taught myself a little bit about them so that I could better write, better just do better products for my general job while also learning about AI for my job. So then from that, doing these micro projects, I'll come up with an idea or a theme or element, say for a rack design, and I'll jump over and throw just a few elements to the AI, open and say, list me 10 ideas around this and let it do its thing. Well, while it's doing its thing, I'm back over here doing my other. It took me half a second to let it do its thing. So now I'm back over doing something. When that's done, I jump over. All right, cool. Out of these 10 ideas, write me prompts in this, and this format that now, instead of me writing a crappy prompt, I leverage the AI to write a better prompt that then will create an image. So now I've got the 10 ideas, then I've got the 10 prompts. And now I take those 10 prompts one at a time, and I'll drop them over into Dolly, let it create the image for me. It'll usually do about 2 at a time. So I'll take that image. If I like it, I'll save it. If I don't, I just move on. The thought being that I can process and do these smaller things a lot faster and not spend a lot of time on corrections of images and things like that. Now, if I run across one that I really like, but it's got a few errors in it, I'll throw it to the side, and then I work with a graphic designer and or my assistant to do the fine detailing of it. And then at that point, we're able to roll it out. And that way we're getting through them much faster, more efficiently, and coming out with a better design, better product without spending a lot of time and wheels turning on stuff that's just not going to go anywhere in a fast manner from that aspect.
That's really interesting. I mean, most people can't do that. In fact, in my line of work, I like to say that multitasking is the enemy of productivity. That having to sort of switch from, different contexts, you lose productivity because you have to sort of reacquaint yourself with where you were in the project that you were working on 10 minutes ago or an hour ago, whatever it was. And that time that you lose in reacquainting yourself adds up, right? But you seem to be an exception to that rule. So what is it about your brain? Is it just you're wired differently on?
I would definitely say that for sure. I've only met one individual so far in my whole adventures that has a brain similar to mine, and that's Lisa Cap Brown. I met her the other day, and it's just I don't know. My best friend even, he'll look at me and he I don't get it. He's also the individual that if he doesn't know exactly how it goes together and all the pieces, all the steps, he can't move forward. He has to have all those pieces. Whereas me, if I know, and maybe it's from the medevac years or why I paired so well with the medevac, but if I know where I'm going and I know where I'm at, as long as I know that first step in the direction I need to go, I have enough time to figure out everything else along the way. Because ultimately, if I plan it all out, now everything that I plan, as soon as I start, something's changed. So now I'm planning the entire way anyways. Now, some people would go to the concept of, well, if you don't know the steps and you're going to fail or you're going to go the wrong way, I don't disagree. I'm not saying mine's the best method. And ideally paired, like me and my good friend, we work well together because we'll come up with a concept or an idea or something, and I'll take off running towards it. He's like, what? So by the time I get through the first step, he's already on step 2, 3, and 4. So now I'm able to keep chugging along, and he's staying ahead of me as far as the planning purposes because he can chunk it out in smaller bits.
I think it's just it works different for different people, and for you, you're able to get deep into the work and make progress, where for most people, having to switch tasks as often as you seem to do, it would just cause them a lot of overwhelm, right? I was reading a book the other day, or actually I finished it. It's called Deep Work. And the book states that the people that do their best work actually dedicate time so they can think deeply about something and turn out a quality product, writing a book or coding or whatever it is. In fact, in coding, you're in the tech field now, at least, and you have been probably for a long time. There's a technique called the Pomodoro method. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that. So it's 25 minutes of intense, dedicated activity on a task break. And you're focused on the task and that task alone, and you make a lot of progress. You take a break, you get up, walk, take use the facilities, whatever you need to do, right? And then you're back another 25 minutes. It could be a different task, maybe not the same task, but you're exercising parts of your brain that are involved in focusing on something and getting it done. Now, it sounds like you've figured this out on your own in smaller chunks of time to sort of get deep in something and make productive use of the time that you have, and not getting distracted by other things that may be on your plate. What do you say
definitely
to that?
Try.
What's that?
I said I definitely try, and that is a lot of how I work, just in a much smaller, instead of the 20-minute scale. It's cut down even further. When we talk about it, it really may be 1 or 2 minutes on a thing, but when I'm on that thing, that's exactly what I'm doing and what I'm focused on. And yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but I do have a weird knack to just be able to compartmentalize those things and go, all right, that one's here, this one's here. Now, they may be all over to anybody else, but I'm that individual that walks into the garage most days, and yeah, it looks like a chaotic mess, but I walk in and I go, all right, that's generally where it's at, so then you start fine tuning from there. But yeah,
that's really interesting. I see elements of that in myself. I can do many things, although as I get older, it's getting harder to keep everything straight. But maybe that's it. Maybe the multitasking is, you're not really multitasking. You're single-threaded. You're single-tasking minutes at a time on one thing and making progress in that one thing and then moving on. That's really interesting. Sorry for the little side tangent. I wanted to go.
No, I love it.
Circle back on your other businesses, right? So the Design Swag and the apparel. So that's what you're using AI for, is to generate the designs for these things. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So just leveraging it to create the different images using prompts. I don't know if I can puff underneath my foot, but I'll kind of show you just the general idea.
Yeah, that's nice.
All sorts of different concepts that come to mind. Some are aviation related, some are military related, some are just funny.
That's great. I mean, so you're actually using AI to generate the prompts that you use to generate the images. So it's almost like the tail wagging the dog in a way, right? So
absolutely. And a lot of people think of AI as like, oh, it's going to replace this, that, and the other. It's got to start somewhere, right? There's got to be a human involvement, a human thought involved in whatever that thing's creating or starting from. Now, that's not to say that there aren't specific areas where it can just do automated stuff by itself, which is cool. Point being, like right now where we're at with the technology, there's still human involvement and a lot of it, right? They call it co-pilot for a reason. It's not flying it for you. It's not autopilot. It's there beside you, much like the OpenAI and the prompting and things like that. It just is there to make you more efficient and effective in the things that you do. So for me, again, going back to the micro projects, instead of me having to sit here and write out 1,000 ideas, this thing can do it in seconds, and I can give it enough information out of my own brain that, I hate to say it, but we start thinking alike, right? And that's the intent of the thing, is when you build out the assistants in there, you give them an instruction. So one of mine's just specifically for post writing. So all my social media stuff, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, or all those things, I gave an instruction to be a bit of a witty smart aleck, have a underlying tone that's motivating and inspirational.
Yeah.
The thought being that while I can't articulate my words as well as others, I hope that this gets my intent and my emotion and passion across better than I can myself. And anybody that goes to my PMP site and looks at it will see the write-ups under all the different collections. And I do the same thing for my customers there. They don't provide the write-up as a general rule of thumb to me for their collections. What I do is I glean off their Facebook, their Instagram, any of their social medias that I can get to. And I do a deep dive on them, and I see what they're up about, and I pick out their majority things. And then I take that and I integrate it into the AI and say, hey, do me a write-up based on these elements. And then it does it in the tone of which I want it. And then I sent it over to the people, and it's amazing of how many responses I've gotten back of, John, that's amazing. John, that's written better than I could have written it. And it's more in tune with me than I would have even thought of that it should have been, kind of thing. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, AI is definitely it is an accelerant, right? It can help you accelerate whatever it is you're doing, as it augments your intelligence. It doesn't replace it; it amplifies it in some way, in many ways, right? I use it all the time,
Absolutely.
right, to at least get me started on blog posts or social media posts or whatever it might be, and I feed samples to it of my writing style so it can write like me, and it's amazing how close it comes to doing that, and it's getting better all the time. You know, the AI tools that are out there. I'm curious.
You mentioned you wanted to write like you, because I'm the total opposite. I wanted to write nothing like me.
Well, I mean, you know, I've been sharing stuff online for a long time, and so if suddenly I start sharing stuff under my profiles that sounds different, then it's going to be pretty obvious that it wasn't me that wrote it, right? So for me, it's about having it amplify what I would say, and, you know, speed up it would take me some time to write something like that. But if I give it sort of a short snippet, a description, and have the AI generate something that I want to say, but in my voice as much as it can, then I think that's a great start, and gives me a nice blog article that I can use either verbatim. I generally don't do that. I generally go through it and change a few things here and there, but it greatly increases productivity.
Well, yeah, because I mean, at that point, you're going, instead of writing the whole thing and spending hours doing that and racking your brain to get it perfect, you've got a draft in seconds. And now you're reviewing that draft and able to put your fine touches and rock and roll. And that's one of the reasons I love it. Yeah.
You know, with the blend of the businesses that you have, right? You got for-profits, the PNP Design. I'm assuming that's a for-profit, right? Company.
Yeah. So technically, there's only two companies. There's the nonprofit, which is Eagle Rising Foundation, and then the other one is Veteran Reachback Group. So under Veteran Reachback Group are the different pillars of elements that we do, as far as the PNP Design, the RAC, and the CRC.
I see. Got it. Okay.
We also do resiliency training as well. Our partner in crime, as well as the companies, does that.
Tell me more about that. What does resiliency training look like?
You're going to get me behind, and he's going to give me a hard time again. That's his area of focus and his expertise. He is the master in all that, so I don't even try and delve into that realm. So,
that's interesting, because there's
I'd love to set up a call with him on that, because he is passionate about it. I'd love to learn more. Absolutely.
I'd love to learn. It's the only reason I ask, and why it piqued my interest. Again, I remember vaguely we talked about this before, as I use an assessment that's called the adaptability AQI. So adaptability quotient, and it has the I there because everything's AI these days, right? But the premise of this assessment is it measures an individual's ability to adapt. And the central notion is that the more resilient you are, right, if you are able to withstand disruption, pain, job loss, personal loss, whatever, it makes you can either respond to it in a way that you have throughout your life and your career, John, or it can affect you and make you less resilient to those types of changes. And so adaptability is an important thing to measure for individuals. For teams can be measured on a scale of adaptability. How well do they adapt as a team to changing conditions? And I'm sure in your military training in the Army, that's something that's very important, right? The team has to operate as a unit. It has to be resilient in the face of changes, and has to be able to make decisions on the ground without clear supervision. They have to be trained enough and empowered enough to make decisions when they're out in the field. Absolutely. Which is why the whole concept of resiliency training really intrigues me.
So one of the things we do focus on, and what people will learn out of that training, is something that is truly near and dear to most military folks' heart that's ever been in any type of unit, is the morale, right? And in company alike, anybody can relate to that. And you've been in businesses and jobs that the morale was low and people didn't want to be there. And you've been at other places where it was high. So being able to raise the morale in a workplace by creating a positive attitude and climate is huge for people. And that's one of the things that we teach leaders to do in this program, as well as just boosting overall teamwork by developing the cohesion amongst their team, right? So helping them better understand that as a leader so that they can build those teams that they saw in the past that were phenomenal. While they may not be able to do it themselves yet, this allows them that next step to be able to do that. Or as a junior leader that's not been in that position to experience it yet, gives them an opportunity to learn prior to being in that situation.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it makes a lot of sense. I'd love to meet your partner in that and talk to him more about that as well. So we're getting up into the sort of the latter part of this interview, and I wanted to just circle back, and I know this may be a difficult question. Losing your father-in-law must have been a huge disruption in your life, right? And losing his guidance, and you talked about this already. What are you trying to, is that what you're trying to replicate or trying to provide as part of your mentorship program that you're launching here?
That's definitely part of it. I want others to have that place. I want them to have that mentor or access to that mentor that they might not already have, or give them other options, right? There's tons of people in America that don't have that option or have the ability to have a mentor at hand or be able to go out and do those things because they are constantly either working to just make the dollar in or the ends meet or, whatever the case may be. I want them to have that person, that place that they can come to and I don't know the best way to put it other than just a place of comfort, a place that they can learn, a place that they can grow, a place that they can share experiences, a place that they can feel comfortable, and then they can give back as well and ultimately just drive success for themselves and those around them in their own right, because I don't think anybody dictates what your success looks like. I still don't know what success looks like for me. And that's part of the reason I'm still driving, I think, is because I haven't found that thing yet. But at the end of the day, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
I'll never get him back, but
yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it's very inspiring, Jon. And I for one I mentioned this before. I'd love to get involved in any way, shape, or form I can. I may even have a nonprofit that could take advantage of your design videos and sort of design some shirts for them and to help them raise money. They're a nonprofit. So I will introduce you to their director of development for that. It's a homeless shelter here locally. And I'm wondering, is there a question I didn't ask you that you'd like to let our viewers learn more about?
Not really a question, but I would challenge anybody that's paying attention to never accept the first no. And the reason I say that is because, like I tell my kids, there's a few reasons that I've learned in life of why people say no right out the gate. And it tends to be because they either don't know the answer, they're scared to go ask, or they're not the right person,
right,
or they're lazy. That's in there too sometimes. But the thought being that if you tell yourself no, it's always going to be a no. If you make somebody else do it, that's 50-50 chance. So now if you go on beyond that and you go to that person and you don't accept their first no, well, now drops it another 50 in my brain. So now we're at a 75% shot of getting a yes just by asking them the question twice.
Yeah.
Well, that makes things way more achievable. So now when we're at that 25%, okay, what is their reasoning behind the no? Do they have a justifiable reason? And if so, how can I provide them what they need to get to that yes, or to support them in their quest to get that yes for me, and do that, right? And be the person that they're not having to come to and follow up with and things like that on stuff that I'm passionate about and I want to see done, right? So if we take our own responsibility and we take our own initiatives, it's unstoppable what you can achieve. I also believe that you mentioned it earlier. Impossible isn't a word. It just hadn't been figured out yet. Yeah. Right? Look, even yesterday, I guarantee you, if you look across the world yesterday, you could probably find a million things that were impossible. Yet today, because of technology, somebody learning, something changing, whatever. It's no longer impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So is there really an impossible, or have we just not figured it out yet? Right. So keeping that in mind has kept my drive and determination going on every no that I've received. You know, we talked about me transitioning from Air Force to Army.
Mm-hmm.
Got declined the first time on my warrant package. It took me 6 months to put the package together.
Mm-hmm.
Got declined and got picked up the second time. Had I taken the first no, I would have never become a helicopter pilot. I never would have went through the MSSA course. I never would have ended up where I am right now. So that's something I want people to take away from this, as well as everything else they've heard today, is truly just never accept no, never tell yourself no, and get out there and be the person you want to be. Don't let anybody else dictate who you are. Always make a positive influence in everywhere you go, and don't be that cancer. And I mean that in the literal form as well as the figurative form in any environment. You know, nobody enjoys when there's negativity in the room. And I understand that happens, right? I'm not naive to that. I know people have emotions and they get out of check from time to time. I'm that person too. Mm-hmm. But as a general rule of thumb, if we get up every day and we strive to do slightly better, and understanding we're going to fail at times, we're going to fall, we're going to stumble. The point is get back up, keep moving. I saw Hawkeye the other day walking down a flight of stairs at the hospital, and he apologized for moving slow in front of me. And I said, there ain't no reason to move or apologize for moving slow. I said, you're still moving, sir. And he's like, every step forward is a step in the right direction. I said, yep.
Yeah, that's a great story. I love it. Yeah. You're a very inspiring guy, John. I'm inspired. And I hope that the people viewing this are also inspired. So don't take no. Don't take the first no. Don't take the second no. And it's a good adage to live by, right? It's something that myself and my colleagues and people that I work with, we say maybe in different words, but we try to live by that as well. You know, not to take failure, learn from failure, really. Even if there is a no or if there's a failure, to learn from it and to persevere, to build resilience, right? Borrowing that term again, and being more adaptable to change. So I love it. And I really appreciate you being on the show. We will publish in the show notes the various initiatives, John, that you are supporting, both the for-profit side and the nonprofit side. Okay. And as I mentioned, I'm here to support you. I'd love to be part of that mentorship program.
I definitely plan on having you on board.
Yeah, and we'll figure that out offline. So Thanks again. Thanks for watching, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.